folks are smiling, no need for fear. The kids are learning what they should learn. Finally folks are earning what they should earn.
I want all my people around me. Everybody living good. Everybody eating good. Everybody should. I want all my people around me. Everybody eating good. Everybody living good. One for my brother, one for my sister.
What's up, Kansas City? Welcome to the Black Economic Union of Greater Kansas City's One Voice KC. Today we have the illustrious Carl Boyd joining us. We're so happy to have you here, Mr. Boyd.
I am happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, you know, I've been knowing you for quite some time, and you have been just the supreme educator, mentor, philosopher, teacher, guru. Have done quite a bit in Kansas City. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Actually, I arrived in Kansas City in 1980. My first 38 years were spent in Chicago, Illinois. Grew up on the south side and began teaching in 1964. Had a stint with the Push for Excellence program with Reverend Jesse Jackson, now referred to as Push Excel, and arrived in Kansas City to teach at J.S. Chick Elementary, then at Southeast Junior High, which was not Southeast Middle, but Southeast Junior High School. But I am particularly pleased with the fact that a person who came to Kansas City to spend 1 year ran into a young lady whose name is Wanda, and this is 2016, and I am still a part of Kansas City, Missouri, so she changed my plans. And my fields are in education, working with teachers on how to deal with hard-to-reach students, and of late working also with veterans on motivating students to dedicate their excellence to our troops.
Well, great. I know that we could cover a wide range of topics with you, and we know you have just a considerable background, especially when it comes to dealing with gangs and youth violence and education, but also in dealing with economics. And that's kind of what brings us together today as you work with the Black Economic Union, with the Black Economic Youth Coalition. Tell us a little bit about this program that we're launching.
Let me indicate to you that this is a blessing, this is an honor, this is an opportunity that obviously I would never have gotten had it not been for you, and the fact that we have a relationship that goes back a while. And your having given me the opportunity to participate in the Black Economic Union and all that it means for this particular district where we sit today on 18th and Vine, but what it means for the African American community locally and nationally, your invitation allowing me to just be a part. I naturally went to the youth, the young people. My background is in working with adolescents in particular, and as you say, teenagers who in some cases experienced a wayward path. It occurred to me this unique opportunity to work with the Black Economic Union will see young people understanding money and what it means to family. There's an opportunity for families to become relevant, to become intelligent where money is concerned, and coming from a person who unfortunately has not been intelligent where money is concerned, it allows me an opportunity to have young people share with me what I wish I had done. And if you allow us at BEU commissions, Black Economic Youth Coalition, to write a book, it would be something like doing it right again the first time. In other words, having contributors who are experts in money management advising young people on what I would have done beginning in the 6th grade if I had it to do over again. Here's what you should do the first time.
You hit the nail on the head. A lot of times, we as adults, we get criticized, and I remember being on the other side of that coin as a youth, criticizing adults for not being so transparent, but having the appearance of being perfect and not having done everything right. And in your explanation just a moment ago, you hint at maybe some bad decisions or maybe some misfortune over the course of time. And I think just that transparency for me, as a 40-year-old black male who has made a number of mistakes financially and otherwise, I don't remember adults telling me that they made those types of mistakes when I was a youth.
Yes, sir.
And so consequently, not having been advised of those mistakes, I think I may have repeated some of the same mistakes of my elders, if that makes sense.
It makes all the sense in the world. As a matter of fact, many of your elders have made the same mistake more than once. So what I am suggesting is the earlier you start, the greater opportunity you have to develop habits that will hold you in good stead.
Yes.
And you will make the mistake early enough in life so that when you recover, you still have many years ahead of you. As a matter of fact, we are considering and offering through Cascade Media that is youth can take it to the bank. Youth can take it to the bank. And the idea behind that is to bring together true financial experts who will offer tips to young people on a weekly basis that will help them to understand what planning is, to help them to understand what investing is, to help them to understand how to make intelligent use of the bank or banks that are available to you, but particularly in the African American community, a bank that reflects the African American community, who we are, and what they need to see as it relates to ownership of your own community. So let me tell you in no uncertain terms that I do not have the audacity to equip myself as an expert advising young people on what to do and what not to do. One of the things that I have learned in my years is to call upon people who do know what they're doing, to accept their advice and not to expect it to happen overnight. So we're talking about Black Economic Youth Coalition developing a 25-year plan and sticking to it. And one of the things that I was going to say is one of the aspects of the program will be a segment called Starting Or at 74. Because I'm starting now to learn some things that I want to pass on to a 13-year-old to travel this path with me. But in their 25-year plan, that means they'll be 38 years old and well on their way to self-sufficiency.
You know, it's interesting that you talk about passing something on, not just the information, but also when we think about the passing of wealth and the passing of a legacy. And, you know, we've been fortunate to study Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson, and looking at all the data that exists where it talks about in the Hispanic community, in the Asian community, and other communities, wealth is passed down to the next generation.
Yes.
In the black community, we tend to pass down debt, or we pass down zero in terms of wealth.
Yes.
So there's no foundation. I can remember in college, I went to a predominantly white college, 16,000 students. We had roughly 92 black students when I arrived on the campus, so it was dismal numbers. But one of the things that I learned was the difference in terms of habits, if you will, and traditions. And so in my family, the tradition was if you got married, you have a big wedding and then you have the big celebration afterwards,
Sure.
or what have you.
Sure.
Well, that was similar in the predominantly white culture that was there, but what these young people talked about as they were looking to get married after college or even during college, what they talked about was as a wedding gift, they were going to get a house.
Thank you.
From typically from the groom's family or from the bride's family.
Yes.
In some cases.
Yes.
So when you begin to talk about passing down information and passing down wealth, to me it becomes more important because a lot of times we have to, our 13-year-old that grows up to be 21 has to build from the ground floor.
Without a doubt, and it's interesting you mentioned Claude Anderson because you make me mindful of Black Labor, White Wealth. That's one of his books.
That's right.
But I also think about the book by Haki Madhubuti, Black Men, Single, Dangerous, Obsolete. And Haki Madhubuti suggests that white boys are oriented towards running the world, where in our culture we are taught, not necessarily from the standpoint of technically taught, but by our social surroundings, to become consumers. So that one of the books I read some years ago was called The Millionaire Next Door, and the book was suggesting that the millionaire next door is someone whose millions are anonymous because they don't have to buy the most expensive car, they don't have to wear the most expensive clothing. There is the assumption that they're going to be self-sufficient by a certain time. So, when I think about the lecture that I used most often with teachers for 20 years, no one rises to low expectations. My prayer is that the Black Economic Youth Coalition will develop a set of expectations that says we will be self-sufficient before age 50, that we will be intelligent about money matters by the time we graduate from college, that there will be an expectation that we take care of our families, that we are expected to live in communities that are safe and orderly and loving and cooperative, so that when there is that expectation, our behaviors will follow and become a tradition over time.
Got time still? Okay. So when you talk about you're not. Let me start off. You're not just talking about the individual. You're talking about families. You're talking about affecting a system. Right now, we have black people in Kansas City, according to the Urban League study, the state of black economic wealth. We have less than 60% of the wealth compared to our white counterparts here in Kansas City. When you look at our unemployment rate is twice that of our white counterparts here in the city. And so if you look at all of those economic indicators, we are lacking. How do you propose that we change this culture of poverty that exists, and not just the actual finances, if you will, but the mindset of poverty?
Start early. When you talk about changing a culture, one of the reasons that I would like for us to invoke a 25-year plan is because oftentimes we want immediate solutions. We want magic potions. The thing that will help us most is to develop a family culture wherein not only are the expectations high, but there is no shame in asking for direction. So oftentimes we criticize families, and most particularly because of our economic plight and our social dilemma as it relates to violence in the community, we fault the family. We say immediately the problem is the family. Now, it's one thing to indulge in what we used to call in the day the paralysis of analysis. That is, being so able to analyze the problem that we don't take the next step towards a solution. But rather than analyze what's wrong with African American families, it would behoove us to educate ourselves as to how strong African American families have been historically and now, we pray, traditionally, so that rather than indict the family for what they're not doing, let them feel welcome in an educational setting where we can teach them what they might do and learn from them what their plight is enough so we can identify with them and begin to say, whatever difference you and I might have, both you and I are concerned about your children. How can we work together to make sure that those things that are detrimental are not repeated in the lives of your children? Most parents will agree, okay, if this is for my daughter, if this is for my son, I'm with you. Now let us learn together how to implement habits that will hold our children in good stead, because children learn more by example than they do by instruction. And if we can set that example in front of them of being cooperative. When you mentioned, was I talking about the individual, it immediately took me to a conversation I had with Brother John Webster, because we were talking about the principles of the Nguzo Saba. And when I was talking about this, he was saying, were you talking about individuals as opposed to, for instance, cooperative economics? So no, I'm not talking about the individual. I am certainly talking about the family, but I'm also talking about cooperative economics in the context of the community as well as the family.
Amen. So, Mr. Boyd, you're 74.
Yes, sir.
What drives you?
Marvin Lyman. And let me explain exactly what I mean by that. You cannot imagine quite yet, even though you had a couple of instances where former students of yours have come to you, or you've seen them from afar, what they're doing and how well they're doing it. If someone my age cannot be stimulated by not just the success that you enjoy, but your commitment to the community, then we cannot be stimulated. My blessing is that I'm still healthy enough to be a part of the community, and I count it even a blessing that I have run into the financial difficulties that I have, in that two things can occur from that. One, by example, I'm able to show you, your viewers, able to show clients with Black Economic Union who participate with Black Economic Youth Coalition, the relationship between faith and works, and how God has kept me even through these difficult times. And number two, to share with young people that it's not too late to start, and get experts who know more than I, who will guide you and accept their guidance. You stimulate me to do that. Youngsters with whom I've worked over the years who are still in touch stimulate me. And more than anyone I know, wonderful Wanda Boyd, my wife, stimulates me to keep going.
Absolutely. You know, as I think about the direction we're heading, a lot of times some of the criticism that's out there is that there's a disconnect between our elders and our middle-aged folks and our millennials and our youth. And I'm excited about this relationship, this partnership as we move forward, because clearly there is no division as we seek to work together for the same cause of uplifting the Black community.
Let me thank you so much for saying that. Let me tell you, if we want to find divisions, we can find them. If we want to find where we are disconnected, we can find it, we can validate it, there's no doubt about it. But in our community, too seldom do we point out how cooperative we are, how unified we are, how together we are, how the faith community is involved in our lives. I created a term called sites attacks, and it's spelled SCITSITATS, sites attacks. If you turn it around, it's statistics. We just always talk about the statistics, what's wrong. Turn it around, the sights attached. Let me show you what's right in the black community. I will show, to the degree that they allow me to do so, people who have helped me personally and our family financially without saying a word. I'm going to get an opportunity to repay them, but I want the world to know that in the African American community, we do indeed help each other. We are unified on a number of fronts, and we want to accentuate the positive in every opportunity we can, in every way that we can.
Mr. Boyd, it is definitely a pleasure. I can remember as a young man being a part of Coogee Chagalia,
Yes, sir.
the guide right program with Kappa Alpha Psi. And so my father died when I was 15, a month and 2 days before my 16th birthday, which was supposed to be a monumental occasion.
Yes, sir.
And so to have your presence and the presence of black men in my life at that age really made the difference as they prepared me, as they assisted me through high school and helped me prepare for my next journey into college and beyond. And so when you talk about the good points of our community and what's going on and us helping each other, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge your influence. Now, I do have one thing to say, though.
Yes, sir.
For whatever reason, I was never invited or permitted or whatever the case, was never allowed on Generation Rap. But
I'm glad you said that in 2016, because one of the things that I need to say and I need to repeat on an ongoing basis, my blessing was that Prem Carter and Freddie Bell asked me to start a program for young people in 1987. So, December 12, 1987, we started the Generation Rap. Our first caller was Herelda Scales. When she was 14 years old, she called into the program, our first caller. But Wanda and I left for Arizona in 1999. And Sean Edwards took over the Generation Rap for a while. Jermaine Reed was, of course, involved from the time he was about a year and a half old. And Granddad took it over. And I tell people that when I started out, I said to teenagers, the Generation Rap, I'll give you a voice. Jim Granddad Nunley said to teenagers, the Generation Rap, I'll give you a show. So that when I look at what those young people are doing now, after having gone through Jim Granddad Nunley's tutelage, their ownership is greater than the ownership the young people had when it was under Carl Boyd. So at your time, I only had 3 or 4 youngsters who were on the show, Jamil Malone and Paul Rayford, and Keeping It Real with Tennille was Tennille Grant, who went to Northeast and was an absolute outstanding student. And Generation Rap had a young lady come back who's integrally involved, and that's Erica Price. And Erica Price used to do a part on the program. Jonathan Lowe used to do Lowe's Lowdown. I mean, it just happened that it opened up to a greater degree when you became an old man. So that's what happened. But I cannot thank you enough for the compliment. But Brother Nunley and others who work with young people will have you to know in no uncertain terms that the compliment goes both ways, because we could not seriously continue to do what we are attempting to do without success stories like yourself.
Thank you, sir. Well, I look at what Erica's doing now. She's my counterpart at the Blue Hills Community Development Corporation. Right. So it's interesting that we have such a common influence in you helping us, but then also going back to passing down and just thinking of what has developed with Generation Rap. That was something that was a thought that was in your mind that you created, that has blossomed, and you and it has grown. But that was a seed that you sowed and nurtured many years ago, and the fact that you permitted others to come in after you, and you were not afraid of them taking the program to a next level or
Ooh,
exceeding
man.
anything that you did.
I-
And so I admire you even for that, because I think a lot of times we don't. Sometimes we want to hold on to things because they become our baby,
Oh man,
and
no,
we've got to realize that that baby needs to learn to crawl, needs to learn to walk, needs to learn to run,
Yes, sir.
needs to learn to explore life
Come on with it.
and continue to mature. So I appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Man, when there a few years ago, Ruskin High School had 4 young brothers who were depended upon at that high school. They were football players. When there were tensions in the high school, when there was leadership needed, and one of the 4 was Steve Jackson. Now, Steve Jackson is the father of Isaiah Jackson, who's on Generation Rap now on a regular basis, and I always kid Isaiah about being a Generation Rap member like Jermaine when he was 2 or 3 years old. But when you look at that and look at something grow, when I returned from Arizona, the last thing I wanted to do was try to get in the mix and stop the rhythm of the momentum that they already had, and or to even put my footprints on what is currently happening, watching it, and they're allowing me from time to time to get on the show or to be a part of something that they're doing is flattering to me. But believe me, I love to see it go to the next level and the next and the next. So God is good.
Well, we're excited about the work that you're going to do with the Black Economic Union Coalition.
Man, I'm excited.
The Black Economic Union of Greater Kansas City is proud to have, honored to have Mr. Carl Boyd as a part of our team, and we're looking forward to many years of great success and improving the Black and urban community.
Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to it a lot more than you. So thank you very much, Marvin Lyman.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I'm IFBB Bikini Pro Cat Williams, and when I'm not working out in the gym, I'm searching the web on Cascade Media and What's Up Kansas City. So make sure you check them out.